What's up, guys? Now that I have my the internet that I wanted, I can now start to use my good camera. So really happy about that. I spent a lot of money on this camera and then haven't been able to use it for the last year. So I am very, very stoked to be using this camera, and I'm sure you guys are happier that I'm not sitting here with a cell phone doing really shaky videos. So anyway, you can tell what the point of this video is going to be is to talk about this Shirogorov Hati. So Shirogorov is a Russian knife company. They are not all that well known in the States, but they are pretty well known in Russia. Some of their knives, even these knives, like the model I'm holding in my hand now, will auction in Russia for loads of money, very large sums of money. So they're very popular there and gaining popularity here. Like I said, this model is called the Hati, titanium frame lock flipper with a steel lock insert. It is not on bearings, but I will get to that later. It does have proprietary screws, flow-through construction with a, I would say, half-length titanium backspacer back here. All stone washed, all titanium surfaces are stone washed. Titanium pivot actually as well. I think I'm positive on that. If I end up being wrong, I'll annotate that. But proprietary pivot screws, which is a good thing and a bad thing in my opinion, and I'll hit on that later also. But if I could get some focus, I would show them to you. So you can see the screws are, see some gunk in there. Screws are proprietary. They are very easy to adjust if you have the right setup. If not, you can really booger the screw up like you see I've done there. So try and give you some close-ups of that in a little bit. But really this knife is fantastic. There's a couple points I want to hit on. I'm not really going to talk about ergonomics or anything. I'll hit on that kind of stuff very briefly. But the first thing I want to hit on is the flipper action. So it's a really, really great flipper. Shirogorov had trouble with the first few models that I know of that hit the States, where the flipper would just be ridiculously strong and the detent ball could actually be ripped out of the lock bar by the blade. So the detent was so strong that it was pulling the ball out of the titanium scale, which is an issue that hit on more than a few knives. So if I remember, Carter, Juju 1313 had that issue, and a couple more people. The detent on these are now perfect. I handled probably close to 30 different Shirogorovs at Blade Show this year, and they all had perfect flipping action. So they fixed that detent issue. It's now a nice, strong detent, but it's not overly strong. It's actually very, very manageable. You can even flick it with your pinky. So it's not like it's very, very difficult at all. And if I can get that, there you go. The flipping action is actually very, very smooth, and my model has actually gotten even smoother in recent times since I've been using it a lot more. The bearing is actually, or the pivot is actually on a bushing system similar to CRK. So it has a similar pivot bushing to CRK in that it spaces the scales exactly correctly. And so far from what I've seen, it's doing a fantastic job, because you can take the tension off the lock bar, blade swings freely. I'll try and get a different angle so you can see this. So you see, take the tension off the lock bar, blade swings freely. That is a recent development for this knife. Just to be honest, it was not swinging freely for probably the first couple months I had it, and for some reason now it's a lot smoother. So what you have at the pivot is just a regular pivot bushing like on a Chris Reeve. You have phosphor bronze washers, which you can't really see in there, and they're actually different. They're pretty unique washers, and that's really it. You have no bearing system, no special hardware in there other than the pivot bushing, and you wouldn't know it just by feeling it, because it is an incredibly smooth knife in both freeness of the blade and just overall God, I can't do that with my left hand, overall smoothness of the action. So what I mean by smooth is you feel no real resistance when closing the blade, but you also feel no grittiness. It's really just like it's riding on air. It's very smooth. So that's the flipping action. They really nailed it down, and it's one of the better flippers I have. As far as flipping it, it's probably the most fun I have in my collection, just because it's really just responsive and fast. So that's enough about the flipping action. It is linerless, so you have one carbon fiber scale on the presentation side, of course one scale, but a linerless carbon fiber scale on one side. Those phosphor bronze washers actually ride directly on the carbon fiber. It's not an issue. And then you have a skeletonized titanium scale on the other side. So you can see the skeletonization in there, pretty heavily skeletonized. I would say there's probably only 20 thou between the outside of the titanium and the inside of that skeletonization, so they really mill it out. And right in here you can also see that the stainless steel lock bar insert also serves as an over travel, so you actually cannot push the lock bar out any further than that allows you to. I think that's a great design, unobtrusive. You don't have to have a big disc here. It does not provide any resistance in the vertical area, so you can still push the lock bar down if you put enough tension on it, but I don't think it's an issue. So this gives you a good look at the stone washing. It's really dark, so to me it looks like they sandblast the scale and then stone wash it. Clip has done the same proprietary screw, and the backspacer has done the same. One thing I do like about this stone wash finish is that it hides wear really well. You really can't tell, but I've actually dropped this knife 2 times now, once on asphalt and once on concrete, and luckily both times the knife was closed. You really can't tell it. There is still some, I don't know what this is. It's like asphalt stuck into the titanium. I can't get it out. I'll try and show that to you if I can. For some reason I can't get this out, but you really can't see it unless you're looking for it. So there's a little bit of darkness left over from the asphalt. It's hard to explain. It's a ding in the titanium, so you can feel it with your fingernail. It catches your fingernail, but you really can't see it. It kind of blends in with the with the darkened titanium. And the pivot got boogered up a little bit, not a huge deal. My whole point here is that you can't really see damage on the titanium side. Carbon fiber side, before I oiled it up a little bit in the past, you could see where it had chipped a little. That went away. I'm sure it would go away in use just from natural oils from your hands. The pivots have this nice satin look to them, but you can see it scratches fairly readily. So there are a lot of scratches on these screws. Not a huge deal since it's a user. Blade on this is actually a very high flat grind. I would almost call it a full flat. It has a nice stone wash finish as well. And this particular blade is an S90V with the jimping. The jimping on these knives, not a lot of the Shirogorovs have jimping, just from what I saw at Blade Show. But when they do add jimping, it's very functional. It's not sharp at all, but it does provide really good grip, so that's good. The flipper actually has jimping on it too. Again, not sharp at all, but it does what it's supposed to do, in that it gives you some extra purchase. Since I have it close up, I'll show you the lock interface. So you have a very shallow lock angle on the blade tang, and then you have a pretty chunky steel insert with a little extra titanium lip here that prevents over travel this way on the lock bar. So one thing that I do not like about Shirogorov knives is you can flip them out and then you see that you have really nice early lockup, which is really, really solid. It feels like a fixed blade when it's open. Yet you can push this over with virtually no pressure whatsoever. That does bug me. You can't push it any further because of titanium lip here, but it does push in that far. It doesn't affect the strength of the knife, so it feels just as solid, but it does push over. Hang on, my wife's actually calling me. Hey. I'm doing a... Go ahead. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay, I'm doing a video. Love you. Bye. Alright, sorry about that. First time I've never cut that out of a video. I'm not going to cut it out. Don't really care. It's too much trouble. Where was I? Oh yeah, the lock bar. So you can push it over. I don't think that has any really detriment to the knife. I don't think it's going to be an issue, but it's something to look at. So the lock bar is very easily pushed over. When it does that, it does stick a little, and it's not a stick like you're used to. It's almost a gummy feel. So something to note. I don't think it's an issue. I do want to show that their lock face is extremely clean. So on these knives, I don't know what they're doing, but they seem to grind and then lap these lock faces. You see how clean those grind lines are on that lock face? If you didn't see that grunge from some lube, you'd be able to see that it's actually very, very, very clean. So let me try and wipe that off for you. Don't know if I'll be able to show it, but you'll just have to trust me on this. The lock face on these, they pay a lot of attention to the condition of that lock face on their knives. So you can see that that's very, very clean. It almost looks lapped with a very fine grit sandpaper or maybe a micron film, something like that. But it does have a pretty beefy stainless steel stop pin, and that is what serves as the blade stop. That is put directly into the carbon fiber. I haven't had an issue with that. I'm sure if you wrist flick the crap out of it, you could maybe get the stop pin to wear that hole out a little bit. I'm not sure. That's pure speculation. Onto the blade and the meat and potatoes of this knife. This is a high flat grind, like I said. I would call it a full flat in some instances. I guess some people do call it that, but really, really nice shape to it. So you can see that it does taper from full thickness down to a fairly acute tip. Haven't had any issues with that, but it also comes down to a very, very thin cutting edge. Man, I'm gonna have to annotate the measurements in. I measured it right before the video. Thinking it's right around, God, I can't remember. I'll annotate it in or put it in the description. But it comes down to a very, very acute cutting edge. You can see the width of that bevel. This is right around a 32 degree inclusive edge, and you can see how thin that is. So that gives you a good idea of how lean the stock is down at the cutting edge. So this knife cuts exceedingly well, and it holds its edge exceedingly well. This is one of the best cutters and best edge holders I have right now. The knife just cuts and cuts and cuts, and it cuts very well. If you put a lot of pressure into the cut, the lock bar will move over to that lip on the titanium, so it moves over as far as it can possibly go. Not sure that's an issue, but it is something to note, like I said. There's not really much to say about the performance of this knife because it is just a very high performance knife. I don't really have to convince you of that, I don't think. It's been pretty well known that these are really good performers, but really wanted to go over the knife, show it in detail, and point out some of the things that I've noticed about it. Lock bar tension, it does have a fair amount of tension on the lock bar, meaning that it's got some pretty big spring tension, and the mill is actually fairly thick. It's one of the thicker knives as far as the meat they leave in where the lock bar cutout is. Actually, let when I was talking about the stonewash, it actually is sandblasted than stonewash, because you can see the sandblast in there. So it's a very, very heavy sandblast than a stonewash. So anyway, just my overview of the knife. I will do an actual performance review when I get some more cutting in with it. I've only been carrying this one and actually using it hard for the past, I don't know, 3 days. I mean, I carried it. You can see the gunk and the scratches. I've carried it, but as far as putting it through real hard use, I haven't done much of that. So all I can say about Shirogorov is that they have extreme attention to detail. You're not going to find any flaws on these knives whatsoever. And even when I'm talking about attention to detail, they polish out the little flats that are on the side of the flipper. I mean, it's things like that, just little steps that they take that make it look that much better. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. It's a beautiful, beautiful knife. If you get the chance to get one, I would say definitely jump on it. They are fit extremely well, and they are finished extremely well, as you guys can tell. There is nothing left unfinished and no stone left unturned when it comes to their fit and finish. So it's a very beautiful and functional knife. So anyway, I'll give you a little close-up for the last little bit, and then I will cut this off. So the carbon fiber, I forgot to mention, actually has 3D milling in it. Actually not 3D milling, just mill lines in it. You can see they're very, very light up here. Then they get thicker right here. So I'm thinking the mill comes in, or the end mill comes in and then gets progressively deeper into the carbon fiber as it goes. So very, very beautiful scale. I think I would prefer it to just be polished, but I really don't know what that looks like, so I couldn't tell you. But the mill lines are cool, and they do actually provide you a little bit of grip. So there it is, guys. You can fit, I'm not going to say you can fit, but there is a little slot for some type of a lanyard. I don't think you're going to be getting any 550 cord through there, but maybe you could try. I never have. But anyway, that's my overview. Beautiful knife, and the performance review should follow within the next couple weeks, month, something like that. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Puppies are going crazy now, and I'll see you next time.